we have actually reached our very final panel happening here in the Audi Midi room for the CVC 25. So please stay and welcome on the stage Zach Nelson of Genzio Media, who will be moderating our panel, The New Era of Owning and Collecting Art on Chain. Please help me welcome them.
Hey everyone, super excited to be here and introduce my next guests, Wei from Art Fungible and Boris from Live Art.
Hi, Zach. Should I sit in the middle?
Yeah, that's okay.
Fine.
So, as we all know, the space around NFTs and art has changed a lot in the last couple of years, and we're going to kind of dive into the different aspects of NFTs and the projects that these two are working on. Before we kind of get into the questions, I'd love if my fellow panelists could just introduce themselves, talk about what companies you're here representing and what you guys do there.
Shall I start? Hi, I'm Wei from Art Fungible. We are art marketplace on blockchain for both digital and physical art. We tokenize artworks for living artists. Yeah.
Hi guys, I'm Boris Pevzner. I'm the CEO and founder of Live Art, and we tokenize artworks of dead artists.
That's great.
So I would say that, I mean, that every now and again they're not entirely dead, but they're definitely in the what you would call blue chip artists, in the top 20 of the market cap, and we kind of look at art as an asset class, so we actually use words like market cap to when we think about artists. And I'm sure we'll talk much more about how it's done and all the intricacies of it.
Awesome. So for those who are outside of crypto, how would you classify NFTs to that person? Digital assets, art, collectibles, or something else entirely? In other words, for someone who doesn't know what an NFT is, how would you explain it to them?
Shall I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
NFT for me is only a digital certificate, which you can use for like proving ownership for digital art, physical art, or collectibles. Or what we hear very often now for asset investment, like RWA, they are all using NFT. This is for me NFT. Not art, not specific like crypto art and so on. I don't call them NFT art.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. NFT is a bit of a dirty word right now.
I agree. Yeah.
And we never use it. It's really a technology, you know. It's like saying, you know, I'm gonna write my novel in Microsoft Word, so it doesn't mean anything. But what it is, it's essentially a way to have a proof of digital ownership. That's what it is. But it's actually a little bit more than that. Part of it is a certificate that you actually own the thing that you are supposed to own, be that digital or maybe a piece of a physical object, a physical asset in the case of RWAs. But then on top of it, the magic of it is that once that becomes a digital asset, you can do all of the wonderful digital things with it that you cannot do with any of the physical assets. All of those decentralized finance things that we know and love, like loaning and like borrowing and collateralization and vaulting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it kind of opens up a whole new world of what you can do with assets that before tokenization would not be possible.
And I kind of wanted to just jump on something you said, because I think it's probably something that a lot of the audience is thinking is like, why is NFT, as you stated, Boris, a dirty word now? Because I think that is something that probably a lot of people are thinking about, like, why is that?
I would say when we go back to 2021, there was a super hype about NFTs. So there were a lot of tradings on NFTs, and people talking often like they are only JPEG, like NFT JPEG. And we also call like NFT flippers. They're not like an art collectors, and they are like using NFT as like a gambling, I would say. Maybe not that very correct, but many people using that to make money. And then we kind of misuse this term back to 2021, 2022. So then when we talk about NFT now, many people would say NFTs are already dead, and which actually they mean the JPEG NFTs or PFP NFTs back to 2022 and 2021, and that's why we prefer not to use this NFT for actually our digital or physical art on chain. We avoid using this term, yeah.
I think that it was a bubble. Lots of people lost money, and so that's why it's a dirty word.
Yeah, I remember being in Miami during the hype of NFTs, and it's just a bunch, dudes going around being like, "Look at how much money I made off this NFT and then it's NFT." And
just like
6 months later,
yeah, it's just like with any other bubble, when it bursts, a lot of people are left holding the bag, and of course they don't like it, and so the whole concept behind it becomes a little bit touchy. So that's basically what happened. But again, it's just a technology layer. There's nothing wrong with that, just like any other tech. And if used properly, it can do wonderful things.
I agree. And that kind of gets me to my next question, which is, what is the biggest advantage of putting art on chain?
And obviously, it's, maybe I want to go back a bit to the hype. It's not only the bad thing. Because of this hype, a lot of people heard about crypto, and they also enter crypto Web3 because of this NFT hype. A lot of young people back to 2021, they join our crypto community, they join our Web3 community. So this is the good side about this hype. So I don't want to only say it's a super scammy stuff back to then. That's what I want to add. I mean, NFT can bring artworks transparency and authenticity. You can, once you put artwork online, all the transactions are recorded online, and you can see it. There's nothing to hide, right? We even publish all our code of smart contract and all the complete platform code we put online. It's everything open source. So it's extremely open source, open and transparent, which I really like it. And of course, also you can use a lot of Boris mentioned, a lot of other functions which you can't use if you don't use NFT as an instrument. For example, you can implementing royalty commission for artists, and artists can have profit from reselling art, and they can get very close to their collectors. So and like you said, you can fractionalize artworks, which is also not possible if you don't use NFT as an instrument.
Yeah, I would totally agree with all of this. I think there is one other aspect that is super important, and that's accessibility. Right? So once it's on blockchain, it's available worldwide and globally. So anybody in any country, anywhere in the world, who normally would not have access to these kinds of physical assets, right, to high quality art or even to emerging art, suddenly can, right, be that in digital form or even own a piece of a Picasso in a fractionalized form. So this accessibility, some say democratization of art ownership, is a huge component of the value here. But I think that I kind of want to return to my point that I made previously. Once it's like ownership is only part of it, right? So being able to own it in places where normally would not be able to own such assets is important, and it's pretty awesome already, because it's like we want everybody to be an owner of something, right? It empowers people to own assets. It's very awesome just by itself. But then you can do things with those assets, right? You can actually get yield from them. You can, bundle them into funds and indices and provide liquidity to those funds and then get yield from that. You can loan against it. So it's like not only do you own something, but you can in fact easily participate in all the digital economy. Why? Because the protocols for all of because of the composability of all these standards, NFT standard, for instance, ERC 720, not necessarily ERC 721. Because of that, there are protocols that already exist that allow holders, the owners of these assets, to participate in the digital economy, which you cannot do with a piece of art that's hanging on the wall, or a car, or a watch, or other things that we tokenize and fractionalize. You simply cannot. So it's a completely new value that gets unlocked, that gets opened up by bringing an asset on chain. So ownership is one, super important, but then there is a whole class of value beyond ownership, simply because the asset is now digital in the standard form that is composable into all of these other things that we can do in DeFi and on crypto.
And kind of speaking about, blockchains, and you mentioned the ERC standard, do you think right now there's a certain blockchain that's leading for NFTs, and if so, why?
I think now I would say Solana. Even we don't use Solana. Just my personal preference. I still like Ethereum as a gold standard, and we currently add base layer 2 Ethereum on the top, because the expensive gas fee of Ethereum. So we put some more expensive artworks on Ethereum mainnet, and the rest we use base. But Tezos, of course, there are a lot of huge NFT community on Tezos, and also Solana. Ethereum is currently not so big not so active in NFT scene. I don't know. Do you agree, or you see something else?
My view on this is a bit different. It's not totally compatible with yours, just a different perspective. I view chains as a distribution channel. Mm-hmm. Right? We've got stuff to sell. They've got audience. So what's the best distribution channel? And the same thing for crypto wallets. There are other distribution channels. But for us, chains are pretty important. So all chains are good. If they provide a sales channel, they're great. Now, who provides the best sales channel? We sell a lot of art, in particular in fractionalized form, right? Tens of millions of dollars worth of art, like so far per year. I'm so certainly planning to do much more. No one chain can absorb this kind of volume today, based on the Web3 communities that those chains have. The Web2, the next billion users from Web2 have not yet come in. We all want them to come in. It's going to be amazing when they do. But so far, all these products, for the most part, are sold to Web3 natives. And in the case of art, some art collectors in Web2, but there aren't that many of them. There are in the tens of thousands, right? But in Web3, we now have millions, but not maybe tens of millions, but not billions. So there are not many buyers. So every buyer is important. And the question is, what are the chains that have the most buyers for this particular product, right? Not for some altcoin or whatever people like to trade, or a meme coin. There are lots of buyers for that as well in different chains. Solana, obviously, the number one there. But for this kinds of product, right, the products that have that are backed by tangible value. Well, what we found is that, there are big chains like Base and Ethereum. Ethereum is a bit expensive, so we don't sell much on Ethereum. Gas is too high. So we're currently on 17 different chains. So every time we publish an asset, it's available on 17 chains. So it's pretty good, case study of which chains actually perform. And the answer might surprise you. Those are the chains that are not necessarily the biggest chains, but it's the chains with the most passionate communities that have an affinity for something either tangible or cultural. So let me name some names. You've heard of Duck Chain.
Does anyone here know Duck Chain?
I haven't heard of it.
So it's a kind of a meme chain around ducks. They buy a lot of Warhol and Kusama from us in shards. Have you heard of Ape Chain?
Yes. Ape Chain, yes.
The monkeys, they buy a lot of Murakamis and Kuns from us. And so on down the line, right? So it's not just the big chains. The big chains are great. And, there is some volume that comes through that. But it's like too diffuse, and the community is mostly into decentralized finance or whatever, or financial RWAs. But there are these cultural chains which are smaller, but actually a fantastic distribution channel. We have to work with them, but, that's what we found.
I think that's really interesting because, like, I think people are still under the perception it's mostly Ethereum and platforms like OpenSea. And have you seen a large shift from that?
I think for our business, those platforms are irrelevant. This is where like legacy NFT and legacy art collectors hang out.
Very interesting.
It's true. Actually, marketplace doesn't really matter because we use the standard. You can sign on OpenSea, Super Foundation, wherever, and also for us, we are even a marketplace irrelevant, but we curate art. So we help people to select art, and we talk to artists, and we do a lot of offline events and to showcase to the Web2 people, to the Web2 collectors, our artists as well. So we are not only a marketplace, but like Boris said, marketplace is irrelevant. Once you purchase artworks from us or mint artworks from us, you can go to other marketplace to sell, which is good, right? We are extremely open in Web3. It's our like ideology. Yeah.
I think that's really important too, like meeting them where they're at versus trying to change behavior. And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
What is sort of the biggest misconception around NFTs from the mainstream? Like you said, the next billion users. So in other ways, how can we get those billion users to adopt NFTs?
Well, it's a scammy. Misconception is that it's a scam, that it's a JPEG that you're buying, and you know, going back to our previous question, it has to do with that 2021 bubble, right? So I don't think it can be fought, honestly. That's why we don't use the word NFT.
Yeah.
I think it's too tainted, and it's unnecessary. It's like it's just a name. It's just a name of a technology. It's like a name of a protocol. It's a name of just a technological thing that there is no need for that word to be used ever again.
Yeah, we also avoid to use NFT now because once we talk about NFT and they say, oh, either it's a scammy, right? NFT art, or it's dead. So you often is NFT still alive? Are you still doing NFTs? I was like, yeah, we are. And if we call us RWA, because we have physical artworks, I think you too, right? And they say, oh, RWA, you are not RWA. Because they consider RWA as like a real-world asset,
like gold,
like a stock, like a bond, and so on. They will not call us, but we are RWA. We use NFT for real-world asset, right? We use for real-world stuff. But like, so this misconception of NFT plus art is really what we try to avoid, that people still have this, this from 2021. Yeah.
If I could build on that a bit, just give another example. When you look at a cultural asset, let's just go with art. So you look at a painting. Part of its value is financial value. Part of its value, it's social value, cultural value, aesthetic value, ego-boosting value, whatever, right? But non-financial value. So if you were to build a digital product that represents that value, you probably would use the right tool for to represent the right component of the value. So the financial value, you actually wouldn't use NFTs. You would use fungible tokens because they're easier to trade. There is a whole decentralized finance protocols, that are available for them. They're more liquid, etc. And to represent the collectible value and the social value, you would use NFT. So in one of the projects that we've done, and probably we'll do more and more of that, we in fact have an NFT that emits fungible tokens. The fungible tokens represent the financial value. The NFT represents the collectible value. They can be coupled or decoupled. There's different ways of doing it. But the reason that I'm kind of going into the weeds here is just to illustrate that NFT is a tool. In this case that I just described, it's a tool to represent the non-financial value of an asset. whereas the financial value could be represented by something else, by fungible tokens. You could also represent the financial value with NFTs, totally possible to do that, but that's actually not optimal because NFTs are harder to trade. They're not as liquid. They're not as composable, right? There aren't that many protocols for them. So actually decoupling NFT for non-financial value and tokens, like ERC20 type tokens for financial value may be beneficial in certain cases. And so, again, I didn't mean to go into the weeds on, how we do things, but it's mostly to illustrate the point that NFT is just a tool. You don't have to use that tool for everything. Use that tool for what's appropriate. So saying like, why is NFT a dirty word? Well, it isn't. It's just technology. It's just a protocol.
Awesome.
People were misusing it to mean something else. They were misusing it. They used that label to mean, monkeys.
Yeah, and that kind of gets me to my next question is, do you see Bored Ape Yacht Club as art, or do you think it's something else?
Do you want to
Sure,
say?
I'll take it. It's always a great question. Well, I sold my previous company to Christie's, so I kind of have some background in the art world prior to Web3 and crypto. And the classic art historical way to answer it is that all art at some point was monkeys, right? So the Impressionists were laughed at, right, in the beginning, and now an Impressionist painting may be worth $100 million, right? But in the beginning, they were not taken seriously. That was not considered to be art. So are monkeys art? And the time will tell, right? So it's like we never say, for instance, when we fractionalize art, for instance, we don't say museum quality art, which would be sort of a standard uppity way of saying it. We say investment grade art. So it's either investment grade or it's not investment grade. Clearly, Impressionists are now investment grade art. Currently, these monkeys are probably going to be investment grade art. We'll see, time will tell. Certainly, like all the other things that we sell, Warhol, Kusama, Koons, Murakami, etc., are investment grade art. There is a lot of data for it. It's like you can analyze it as an asset class. Like, for instance, we publish one of the most widely used streams of data, current market value of everything, of all pieces of art that have ever been sold at auction. So in the last 30 years, about 10 million assets all in all. And we mark them to market. So we tell you how much that asset is worth today. We're going to package that up and make it available as an oracle so that decentralized finance protocols, like when you want to get a loan against your asset, there will be a data point. So if the LTV is, say, 50%, there will be a data point against which you can the protocol can execute that loan, right? So is it, going back to the question, are the monkeys art or not? If they're investment grade, they're art. It's a visual asset that's investment grade art. That's how the art world has always been. There are new media that come and go. And those new media, once they become established and investable and recognized, they're called art. It's just the label that's attached to such an object that is visual and of investment-grade quality.
I personally will not classify it whether art or not, but it, like you said, time will tell if it's art or not. But it, for certain, that extends the possibility of art, like how you can have, like the Gen Z or blockchain people can have a art community where you can build up a culture based on some art, right? We didn't have this possibility before using this technology or protocol. Now it's like every an ape holder, an NFT holder, they have a lot of events. They have a lot of also like commercial activities, right? Which only based on this concept of this artworks, which is really new, and it can extend really how the nowadays artist community or art community for possibility we can have now, right? So this is what I want to say.
I guess I think something that's very interesting that you both said is that time will tell, and how much time? Like, at what point can you say, like, all right, this is enough time has passed, it's either acceptable or not acceptable? Like, what does that look like?
Well, to me, because I've looked at lots of stock chart-looking things for artists and artworks. Like if this is basically one of the components of our business is generating such kind of pro forma price, curves for the last 30 years for every piece of art, as I said, that's ever sold at auction, and for artists, indices for artists. So if that curve is going up, that means that the artist is becoming more established. And so if it reaches some kind of market capitalization that's non-trivial, I don't know, like the market capitalization of Andy Warhol is about $8 billion. And that's pretty big. Like Basquiat would be about $4 or $5 billion. So it reaches kind of those levels, it's established art. And there's just no other way to put it because it has, it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, so it's got to be a duck. So, not to be confused with the duck chain, which we love. So, so yes, that's pretty much the only criteria, right? It's an objective criteria, and the only problem with that is sometimes it curves goes like this, right? And so at any moment it can do that. And for established artists, it pretty much never does. So I guess it's a non-answer to your question. We don't know, right? The curve is going like this now. Well, I mean, it kind of went like that and then like this, but it hasn't gone to zero. So we really don't know.
Yeah.
But the objective thing to monitor is that. It's the market capitalization, in this case, of that collection.
Yeah, it takes decades to say if an artist is established or not, right? Most artists, I would say, over 99% of artists, they don't have a secondary market, right? And once you pay like a couple of 10,000 for a painting, probably in 10 years it's worthless. You have no secondary marketplace to sell it if they don't reach like the auction house
Yeah. And I think the big driver of that, I mean, this chart is the output. The input, the big driver of that is cultural penetration. So, are the monkeys going to be like on various fashion items, and like are they going to be on mugs? Are they going to be everywhere? Like Warhol Marilyn is sort of everywhere. Murakami is on designer bags, etc. Right? So if the same thing is going to start happening to this image, and it's going to have this cultural penetration, and it's going to be everywhere, and people are going to get used to it, then it's by definition art.
That's really interesting.
Like
yeah,
Patrick Pinguis, they sell like in Walmart and Costco in the U.S. Patrick Pinguis, like you heard it.
Yeah, Pudgy Penguin, of course. Yeah.
They are very commercialized, successful.
And I'm sorry on that. Just the last, I know I just caught myself that I was saying something that doesn't make sense. There is art, and then there's commercially successful art. We're just talking about commercially successful art. Now, what is art is a philosophical question. Nobody knows the answer to that. It's whatever the artist calls art is art. So that's the definition of art. But commercially successful art is what I've been talking about so far.
And when we look at art on chain globally, as we're here in Switzerland and I'm from the U.S., where are we seeing the most adoption globally for art on chain?
I would rather say not geographically, but like generation. So
Okay.
we observe more Gen Z collecting art. We also have like a art collector who collects digital art, and we want to like send them some fine art print as a gift. But they refuse. They said, I don't have place to have this physical paintings. So, there's a generation shift, and they can be in the US, in North America, in Asia, like South Korea and Indonesia. We observe a really huge community of digital art. Then maybe I prefer to use a generation like to distinguish this than geographically.
Yeah. I would completely agree. Generationally, people older a certain number will just not do it.
Really?
In the foreseeable future. I think they can do it if they don't know what they're doing, right? It's like if the banks and other big guys, bring them into the crypto world through all these Web2, on-ramps, through RWAs, like they're going to start owning, I don't know, stocks and bonds in a different way, or gold or whatever, in a tokenized way instead of in a traditional way. And then through that, they're going to be like, okay, what other things can we own in the same way? So this is how it's going to happen for the older folks. But we are very far from that, very, very far from that. Like we're, I don't know, a decade away from that. So for now, that audience is not available. The only audience that's available is essentially Web3 audience. And those, of course, tend to be younger. And geographically, it's like 60, 70, 80% Asia.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for the amazing panel. I learned a lot, so I really appreciate it. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.